Have you ever used something like ChatGPT or Gemini and just thought, how does it do that? We're going to pull back the curtain on the incredible world-changing technology behind it all. LLMs aren't just a buzzword. They're really changing how we interact with information, how we interact with technology itself. How does it go from just having read everything to actually giving you a useful answer to your specific questions? Here's the magic trick. It's not really thinking like you and I do. LLMs is all about statistical prediction, not true comprehensions. Keep that in mind as you're interacting with these tools. These are incredibly powerful learning machines, but it has one massive critical flaw, and you absolutely have to understand this to use these tools the right way. This tendency to just make stuff up has a name, a hallucinations. But here's the problem. There are two main strategies developers use to reduce hallucinations. With all this power, how do you actually get the best result out of these tools? How do you interact with these tools effectively? Welcome back to the series on how AI is already running your life. Today, we're diving deep into large language models. Now, let's zoom into large language models, or LLMs for short. The brainiacs behind much of the today AI magic. Have you ever used something like ChatGPT or Gemini and just thought, how does it do that? How does it seem to just get you? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the incredible world-changing technology behind it all. We're going to unpack what LLMs really are, how they work their magics, some of their, surprising quirks, and the powerful ways they're being used. And most importantly, I'll give you some tips on how you can get the most out of them. LLMs aren't just a buzzword. They're really changing how we interact with information, how we interact with technology itself. So this video is not just about what they are, but understanding why they're becoming so transformative. Now, to really wrap our heads around this, let's start with a simple idea. Just imagine you hired a personal assistant, but this is no ordinary assistant. This person has read and perfectly remembers pretty much the entire internet. Every book, every article, every website. They know science, they know art, they can even write computer code. This brilliant, all-knowing assistant actually has a technical name. A large language model, or what you usually hear people call an LLM. That's the technology we're talking about today. It's a special kind of AI that's been trained on just an insane amount of text. Also, it can understand what we say and talk back in a way that sounds totally human. Okay, so how does the personal assistant brain actually work? How does it go from just having read everything to actually giving you a useful answer to your specific questions? The core idea is that it's an AI model that understands and generates human-like text. It's really a four-step process. First, it gets trained on that gigantic library of data we mentioned. Then, when you type something in, it chops your sentence up into little pieces called tokens. These tokens are essentially words or parts of words like common phrases. After that, it looks at all these tokens to figure out the context, what you actually mean. And then, here's the magic trick. It just predicts the most probable next word, and the next word after that, and so on until it forms a complete thought. It's not really thinking like you and I do. It's more like the world's most sophisticated game of autocomplete with incredibly sophisticated pattern matching and statistical predictions to find relationships between words. Now, if I had to choose one thing for you to take away from this video, this is it right here. Is this key insight that LLMs is all about statistical prediction, not true comprehensions. In other words, it's always calculating probabilities. And since we're talking about tokens, it's important for you to know that there is a limit to how much context or how many tokens it can handle at once. Now, why is this important? Well, this limit affects the model abilities to understand long conversations or documents. This is known as the context window, which dictates how much text the model can actively look back at when generating the next tokens. So keep that in mind as you're interacting with these tools. For very long input, it might lose track of things mentioned much earlier. That's why clear, concise prompts often work best, though developers are constantly pushing to make these context windows bigger. So it sounded like these are incredibly powerful learning machines. But, and this is a huge but, as amazing as it sounds, it has one massive critical flaw. And you absolutely have to understand this to use these tools the right way. Our personal assistant is a people pleaser. Its number one goal is not to be correct. Instead, it is to give you a confident, well-written answer. So if it doesn't actually know the fact you're asking for, it's not going to say, sorry, I don't know. Nope, that's not how it was designed. So it would just invent an answer. It will make up facts, sources, quotes, anything to complete the assignment. This tendency to just make stuff up has a name. It's called a hallucinations. An AI hallucination is when it generates information that's just plain wrong, fabricated, unsupported. But here's the problem. It presents this wrong information with complete confidence, making you think that the information is absolutely true. It happens because the AI is a pattern matcher, not a fact checker, meaning it generates what seems statistical plausible based on the data they was trained on. If a certain sequence of words look like a common pattern, even if it represents something false, the model might generate it. It doesn't have a database of truth to look up, which means, and I can't stress this enough, you cannot blindly trust what it tells you ever. You have to fact check anything that is important. You can't just take its output as gospel truth all the time. So our personal assistant is a potential liar. Oh, that sounds pretty bad. But the good news here is we are not totally helpless. We can actually train our assistant to be way more accurate and useful for what we need it to do. There are two main strategies developers use often together to reduce hallucinations. First, we can fine-tune the AI model. This is like sending your personal assistant to a specialty school. You take a big general model, ones that learned language broadly, and you train it again, but this time on a much smaller, very specific, and high-quality set of data. For example, all your company's internal documents. Think of it like general educations versus a specialized master class. Suddenly, it's an expert on your business. For example, if you want an LLM that is great at legal analysis, you would fine-tune it on legal documents and case laws. This helps it reduce hallucinations because its response becomes more aligned with accurate, context-specific information from that specialized training. It builds a stronger foundation for that specific task. Another root cause of hallucination is that because these models are trained on data up to a certain date, their knowledge can be outdated. Like asking an expert who stopped reading the news 2 years ago. That's where the second technique comes in, real-time data access. This basically gives the LLM the ability to reach out and fetch current information from external sources like the web while it's generating a response. So it's not just relying on its initial training data anymore. It can access up-to-the-minute information. Think about traffic updates like the example we went over in the previous video. An LLM with real-time data access could know about a road closure that just happened, whereas one relying on its training data from 6 months ago wouldn't. So these two things work together. Fine-tuning builds the solid, specialized base, while real-time data access keeps it current and fills the gap. It makes the AI much more dynamic and hopefully more accurate and less hallucinating. So once we get our personal assistant trained up and we know how to supervise it, what can it actually do? Well, let me tell you, you've definitely seen it in its most common jobs. LLMs are embedded in tools you use every day. It's the engine behind the chatbots and virtual assistant we all talk to, like Grok, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. It's the writing helper built into our word processors like Grammarly or Microsoft Copilot. These tools go way beyond simple spell checking now. Some can analyze your writing style and suggest changes to make it sound more persuasive or formal. It's translating languages for us in a blink by mapping complex linguistics patterns across languages, preserving meaning pretty effectively. It can even write a whole blog post and ads from just a few keywords. But it goes so much deeper than that. Companies are using it to automate huge chunks of their customer support by training LLMs on their customer support logs. So chatbots like Zendesk AI or Intercom can handle common questions like, "What's your refund policy?" instantly and politely. This frees up human agents for trickier stuff. Programmers are using it to write and fix code at lightning speed. Tools like GitHub Copilot can suggest code and find bugs. Teachers are using it to create personalized tutors for students. Tools like Duolingo or Kamigo from Khan Academy's AI-powered personal tutor can break down complex ideas, create practice questions, and adapt to a student level. And maybe the biggest deal of all, it is completely changing the way we find information. Think about this for a second. For the last 20 years, when you search for something, what did you get? A long list of blue links. The search engines like Google found potential sources, but you had to do the hard work of clicking, reading, and putting all the pieces together. Well, there's a massive shift we're living through right now. An LLM-powered search engines like Google's AI Overviews or Perplexity can do all that work for you. Instead of just giving you links, they try to synthesize the information, pull data from multiple sources, and give you a concise summary right there on the result page. For example, asking for the best budget smartphone and getting a little summaries instead of 10 links to click. It's all about processing language, understanding the query intent, and generating a useful text output. And it's the difference between being handed a pile of research papers and being handed the finished essay. It's a total game changer for how we get knowledge. Okay, so this is awesome. But with all this power, how do you actually get the best result out of these tools? How do you interact with these tools effectively? Well, this shift in mindset put us in a totally new role. We are not just users anymore. We are managers. And like any manager knows, the quality of work you get back depends on how good your instructions are. This might be the most important mindset shift you need to make. You have to stop treating it like a perfect encyclopedia that has all the answers. It's not. Think of it more like a brilliant, super fast, but slightly naive brainstorming partner. Your job is to be the manager, to provide the context, the guidance, and the guardrails. Now, why is this important? Well, because it helps the AI narrow its focus enormously. It stops it from giving you a generic bland answer and helps it tailor the response to your specific needs. It makes the output much more relevant and frankly more useful. And this is a perfect example of what that means. A lazy, vague prompt like write about marketing is going to get you a generic, boring, and useless response. But look at the great prompt on the right-hand side. You gave it a role. You are a marketing expert. You gave it an audience for small business owner. And you gave it a concrete goal. All of these details makes the difference between getting garbage back and getting something truly helpful. So to quickly wrap up, we journeyed from the basics of large language models, how they learn from vast data, to their occasional hallucinations. We looked at how developers are making them better with fine-tuning and real-time data assets. And we saw just how many ways they are already part of our world, from chatbots to code helpers to search summaries. The big takeaway for you is to give them context, treat them like a partner, and always remember to fact check. Next up in part 3, we're going to look at how recommendation engines seems to read your mind. Comment below if you use an LLM. What was your experience with these tools? Like, subscribe, and hit notification for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in part 3.